And we're back. If you're tuning in, I got my man, Jazz TAKHAR, calling in from Toronto. Format's a little different today. We actually got these guys patched in on a Zoom call. And if you missed what we were talking about, I just want to give you guys an idea of how lucky we are to be where we are. Besides our great warm weather, which is a little gloomy today, our average sales price in the Orlando market for a single family home is $275,000. If you go up north, jump on a plane for 3 hours and you go see my boy Jazz and want to buy a house. Jazz, what's the average selling price for a single family home in Toronto?
So right now, the numbers just came in literally late last night. We're at a slightly over $1 million. So to be exact, it's $1,015,000. Did you just say to me 275? By the way, did I hear you properly? Because we're on Zoom. So
yeah. You heard me properly. 275. And by the way, for you listeners out there, when we're talking about $1 million plus house, we're not talking about like a mega mansion over here. What are we really looking at when we're buying a house for that price point?
Yeah. So as I was mentioning to the listeners earlier and the viewers, that 50-mile radius, there's a lot of different home types there, but yet you're not looking at a mega mansion whatsoever. You're probably looking at like a 30-foot lot with a 15, depending on exactly. The closer you are to the downtown core, the smaller the home that you're going to get. And so in the downtown core for $1,015,000, you're going to get a little 1,200 square foot townhome, 1,100 maybe square foot townhome max. Like that's on the high end, generally speaking. Like if you go right in the middle of the Greater Toronto area, you'll probably look at about a 1,500 square foot bungalow. And again, this $1,015,000 is creeping up. But to your point about 275 and average price in your market, Dawood, our parking spots right now in downtown Toronto, okay, for a new building. So if you were purchasing a new build condo or a new build townhome in downtown Toronto, our parking is at $95,000 to $105,000. So let's say on average, you're buying a parking spot for $100,000, just to kind of give everyone an idea and give them more context in terms of values.
Do you know? Okay, let me ask you a better question. How much is the cost of a condo in the Toronto market?
Well, on average, right now, you're looking at about approximately $640,000. That's kind of the average.
And what does that buy you? Like, how much house does that buy? You're looking
at about a 600 square foot condo. You're at $1,000 price per square foot. So you're going to get about a 600 square foot condo for $640,000.
Okay, that just breaks my heart, by the way, because for $640,000 over here, you could pretty much end up with a beautiful house with a swimming pool. We're talking about 4, 5, 6 plus bedroom houses in some of the best areas in town. And you'll be really happy there rather than your 500 square foot condo that you want to sell me in Toronto.
Yeah. Now, I mean, and we were saying this before we went off air for the commercial. We were talking about how the GTA, the Greater Toronto market in 2020 ended off at 13.1%, right? And the main reason for that, like just basic for anyone who's listening, like why are the values going up? Why do they continue to go up? Like you said, man, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I mean, we were looking at $35,000 condos and townhomes in Orlando. My clients were buying them with you, and they're flying over there. You pick them up, take them around, give them the tour. And and I mean, for 35 grand, they were picking these things up for. Why do values go up? Basic economics 101, real estate 101, supply and demand. The more demand that you have and the less supply that you have, it's just like a bakery. The second the baker starts to run out of bread, he's going to or she's going to put up the price. Real estate is no different now. We also have pre-COVID in Toronto, 250 to 300,000 people coming into our city, right? We're also kind of built on an island, very similar to Manhattan, that you can't build to the south of us because we have a lake. We haven't figured out what Dubai's figured out to build on water yet. On the northern part of this Greater Toronto area that I keep on mentioning, we have what's called a greenbelt legislation. It's a legislation that preserves land so developers can't build on that. Hence why I say we're built on this island. Like there's not much we can do. I think we're probably number 2, number 3 in the world with the amount of cranes that we have, the amount of construction that's happening for condos. But it all comes down basic supply and demand. You mentioned months of inventory for a sec, right? Dawood, like earlier, right? I think you're in Orlando right now. Your months of inventory is a month and a half.
Correct.
Okay, so you're at a month and a half. We're right now just slightly over 3 weeks.
That's crazy.
Slightly over 3 weeks.
And by the way, I know we talked about this off air. I just want to bring this to everybody's attention. What's going on in the Toronto market is also really interesting, because you have 75 people going into multiple offers bidding on a house and bidding $300,000+ over asking price. Guys, if you know, that is the equivalent of buying another house here in the Orlando area. And you know what's going to happen once the lockdown opens up, which is the same thing that we're seeing in Miami, in Orlando. You're going to get to see more and more people start moving down here and start to purchase properties. Now, we're launching a project over here, and we talked about this off air. It's unbelievable, the overwhelming numbers of Canadians that are wanting to come down, because truly speaking, Florida is the warmest, closest place for a Canadian to jump on a plane and come down here. And they actually accounted for some of the largest foreign national buyers in our market. So on that note, I actually want to bring on my second guest, Peter Zalewski from Miami. He's the host of Condo Vultures podcast. I can go on and on and on introducing the man himself. I've known Peter for well over 12 years, when we also did a couple of seminars together, educating a lot of Canadians and a lot of international buyers about our market. Peter, welcome to the show. Give us a little introduction. Tell the world what you're all about.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Dawood, for having me on. Much appreciated. And Jazz, it sounds like an interesting story up there in Toronto. You know, you're kind of a novelty right now. Typically this time of year in South Florida, we have a lot of snowbirds from Canada down here, but no one came this year. They couldn't drive their cars over the border. And then those who flew, I guess there's a new rule now when you return back to Canada, you have to be tested and go into some sort of self-quarantine for a few days. So that basically is impacted.
14 days to be exact, Peter. Yeah.
That's crazy.
14 days. That impacted our local economy. So the area that a lot of Canadians like to go to, which is Hollywood and Hellendale, it's getting killed in terms of businesses because these Canadians didn't show up. So what that's also doing is it's really opening up rentals. So rent prices are dropping. There's nobody here to occupy the damn units. So just a little scenario, but no, I haven't seen too many Canadians this year. No Peter, smoked meat for me.
Oh,
but that's more
that
Montreal, I guess.
Yeah, that's more Montreal.
Peter, but we're getting an overwhelming number of New Yorkers coming to the Miami area. A lot of people from California, because when I was down there, I was surprised to see all the different license plates from different parts of the country.
Yeah, you know what happens is traditionally, just to give everybody an idea of Florida from my perspective, traditionally your Midwesterners, they're going to go on the west coast of Florida. Your New Yorkers are going to come to Miami, and your New Englanders are going to go to Fort Lauderdale type of area. So that typically that's kind of the way it breaks out. So New Yorkers always come here. What we don't normally see are Californians, and we got a ton of Californians coming here. You know, they're coming, they're thinking it makes sense, but they're so out of place. I'm not sure that they're actually going to be able to, stick around. Most people, when they come to Miami, they'll last the first year. It's awesome. Second year starts to get a little difficult. By year 3, they're typically out or they're going home for rehab. So chances are we're going to have to see how it plays out for these Californians. But the New Yorkers are here and they're coming in a big way.
And the best part about it is you're getting a great transfer of wealth from the Northeast with all the hedge fund guys, all the techies that are coming down. And you have a record number of sales that are going on right now. I mean, one of the largest sales in the state of Florida, in the Palm Beach area, sold to what I heard some Russian billionaire for $140 million.
So it's a push-pull, and I want to divide it. So single-family houses, keep in mind, single-family houses are really sort of desirable now, and that's simply because of the pandemic fears. But as I was mentioning, I just got vaccinated yesterday, okay? So I'm going to get my second vaccine in 3 weeks. And then as a result of that, and how did I get it? I was a leftover. I went to a CVS and I was a leftover. They don't want to waste a shot. So, because I'm not of age or anything. But basically, once the vaccine has sort of it's taken its grip in South Florida, I'm not sure that single family houses are still going to have the same allure. And that's simply because of the cost. insurance costs, property taxes, everything else. Keep in mind, as values go up like they are down here, that means your property tax is going up. And anybody who owns in Florida, they need to know that it's 2% property tax roughly in South
But
Florida.
it's still
So that's a
cheaper.
hell of a nut to cover every year.
Yeah, but it's still cheaper than living in Manhattan. It's still cheaper than a lot of the more expensive homes that you could possibly buy on the West Coast as well too. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people are
and no
driving
income
down
tax.
here. Yeah, and no income
Yeah.
tax.
And no income tax. Yeah, no. So New Yorkers are coming, but what we have though, single family houses, there are no houses available. Condos, there's a ton of condos available.
So
a ton of condos.
would you say it's a good
And I
time
think
to get a good
indicator-
deal in for a condo in Miami right now?
Well, everything is. I would tell you, you guys are focusing on price per door. We focus on price per foot. We
yeah.
look at condos as a commodity. Like you look at gasoline. So when you pull up to an intersection, which is the cheapest gas, that's the one I'm putting in my car. In $100,000 for a parking space in Toronto, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Who in their right mind is dropping that? Why don't they just spend the money on Uber?
Yeah. You know what it is? The Uber wealthy, they still have cars and they want to be driving around in them, or they have a driver now. As I say that, it's not just the uber wealthy that are paying for cars, but now 16 years ago when I got into the market, Peter, I mean, that same parking spot was $35,000, 30 to 35,000, right?
Which is
if you look
crazy.
at Manhattan, guys, if you look at Manhattan, a parking spot right now is close to $350,000. A locker costs you $100,000 now, $150,000, right? And so it all comes down to supply and demand. Even as you were mentioning, Peter, like I love what you mentioned about the gasoline analogy, because it's so true, right? I mean, you're looking at what's cheaper, and for us as well as when we're looking at condos from an investor's perspective, we're always looking at price per square foot.
So to give you an idea, and this I think will sort of encapsulate what's going on in South Florida. So right now we got about 8 months of supply of condos in South Florida. We use a rule of thumb of 6 months being equilibrium. So less than 6 months, you got seller's market. More than 6 months, you got a buyer's market. So South Florida's got about 8 months of supply. But here's really, I think, the part that captures it. The ask on a typical condo in South Florida is about $833 a door, $833,000. What are they actually achieving? About $383. You got 118% spread between the bid and the ask. So what I will tell you is typically we see a deal happen when it's about 20%. So when you see the two parties about 20% different in a region or in a building, something happens. But what this says is you got a lot of people trying to get a price for what they think is gold, and the buyer says, dude, you got bronze.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen. And this is why our supply is overwhelming. Now that's overall South Florida, but when you go to places like downtown Miami, Sunny Isles Beach, some of the Hollywood, Hallandale, you're going to find that it's pushing 15 to 20 months of supply, which is definitely a buyer's market. So you start pitching, throwing around offers, chances are you're going to have some success. But keep in mind, a condo is a condo, and you don't know what the shape and the condition is going to be.
Correct. But it still opens up the door for a really interesting opportunity here. So if you're a listener listening in and you have no idea of what's going on outside of the bubble that you live in, you tuned into the right show. If you have any questions, call or text 321-339-1055. This is Dawood Bedrosian on Real Sense Now. I have two mavens, wealth of information. These guys, can move mountains with the kind of great pearls of wisdom that they have to share. If you're tuning in, this is Real Sense Now. Catch us after the break. We have a lot of great bombs to drop on you guys here.